Welcome to Custom Home Builder Solutions, a web-based software, also known as CHS, a standalone accounting suite focused on job costing and profit management for professional home builders.
Hello again, everybody. I am Carol King, the developer of Custom Home Builder Solutions software, also known as CHS. This is the second and more detailed video about the unique accounting needs of home builders and how CHS takes those on. In this video, I will introduce you, the professional home builder, to the accounting features I included in CHS that I always wished I had while working as a controller for a custom home builder, especially all those searches and reports that are included to help your staff stop having to create all those Excel spreadsheets. The reports in CHS will impress your most demanding customers, bankers, CPAs, and auditors. I know that because I'm always told by builders that their bankers or auditors or CPAs ask them, "Where did you get that report? It is so great, I love it." All of those home builder consultants out there are always saying that effective systems provide the best route for reducing stress and balancing your life. CHS is a powerful software that will play the important role of bringing your information into a smooth, understandable, and effective system. You know, building custom homes is a complicated record-keeping business, and CHS is designed specifically for your industry. You will be required to satisfy your customers, lenders, CPAs, insurance auditors, trades, suppliers, and your staff with useful information all of the time, every day. Let us help you get there by providing the tools you and your staff need to manage your business, satisfy those outsiders, and monitor your profits, most importantly. So as it turns out, the accuracy of your accounting and the efficiency of your back office can make or break your business, no matter how well you build those fantastic homes. Back in the 90s, I was hired by a new custom home builder because his investor would not invest unless the first person hired had qualified accounting construction experience. The investor told him that the person overseeing his books needed to be, quote, the smartest person in his business. And over the past 20 years of working with several hundred builders and watching which ones succeed and which ones do not, I have learned that what that investor said is very true. And while CHS provides the tools to help your bookkeeper become a hero to you with many help tutorials about accounting in your complex industry, there is no software program that can make all of the accounting decisions for you. CHS is very flexible to accommodate all kinds of accounting methods that home builders might decide to use, and I'll take a look at those in just a minute. This means that you will need someone who understands construction accounting, either on staff or someone outside, to help that bookkeeper set up CHS and oversee their work on an ongoing basis. We provide several tools for the accountant to help set up defaults to drop in so that someone entering bills to pay or posting monies received to your accounting will be posting them correctly without having to think about it too much, based on your elected accounting method. So to sum up what I've been trying to say in the first part of this video, if your tax accountant tells you that they are not familiar with CHS and that you need to use some generic accounting software that they know, like QuickBooks, please ask them to review this video. I am very happy to discuss CHS with your CPA and to show them the tools they will recognize and then marvel at. Any person that knows accounting can easily handle CHS. Most importantly, please let them know that you need software to help you manage your unique business every day, in addition to giving them the financial reports they need to do your taxes. So let's get on with it and look at some of those things that they will marvel at. So now that I've made you all nervous about how complex accounting for home builders is by saying that you might need to get some outside advice, I'd also like to reassure you about how much help and tutorials there are in CHS, and how I've used my knowledge in construction accounting to build in tools so that the outside accountant can easily help set up some things to help the bookkeeper get off to a good start. My goal was to think about how to handle the complexities of construction accounting and, again, how to eliminate all those Excel spreadsheets that I see being used in so many home building offices and that I used to use all of the time, where they are re-entering data from their accounting software into a spreadsheet for things like insurance liability audit reports, builder's risk reports, job cost variance reports, tracking change orders and payments, waivers of lien, vendor's insurance and other license expirations, and a big one, keeping track of prior drawn and ready to draw costs to prepare draw requests for the customer, and more. Getting rid of the need for all those spreadsheets was actually my biggest goal, so I launched off to combine job costing and much more with accounting so that reports for all of those things can be instantly produced without making those spreadsheets. In the previous video, I showed how many spreadsheets could be eliminated by how CHS can monitor where estimated job costs at completion are headed every day, how they vary from the original budget or estimate, and because of that, it can instantly calculate revised contract prices and balances and give you, the builder, a daily picture of where your gross profit is heading on all active jobs every day. I also demonstrated how CHS will produce draw requests for billing your customer and gives you various ways to do that based on the contract type for the job. So I won't go over those things again here and hope that you do watch the first video. And I'll now get on to showing you the stuff that your accountants will be excited to see. One of the first questions I get asked when people call to ask questions about the possibility of the software is, how long does it take to get set up? I am clicking something called CHS Setup Steps because I'd like you to see how some tasks for setting up are divided between the builder and the accountant. This is a combined program of everything the builder likes to do with cost codes and job budgets and purchase orders, etc., and a full accounting program that produces financial statements for your bankers, for your insurance auditors, for whoever is needing all of that type of stuff. It is a powerful accounting program, and so you need to set it up properly. If you set it up properly and take the time to set it up properly with the proper people in the right seats, you will save all kinds of time throughout the rest of your life because you're using CHS. But to do that, and in order to accomplish that, we need to get a few things set up first. Now actually it turns out that the builders can do their stuff pretty quickly because it doesn't depend on previous information. And they know what they're doing when they're setting up their cost codes, and you will see me talking about the cost codes in other introductory videos, and how you get those started, put items behind them, and various things that you as the builder can get set up with those various cost codes. Most builders understand these various things. They can set up their own or load the NAHB ones, so that part's pretty fast for them. And then pretty quickly they launch off and start doing those job proposals that I have in a video about Get That Sale with the job proposal. None of that actually requires what you would call the accounting. That can all just be done pretty quickly. Now, when I answer the question about setting up the accounting part, I can't answer that question actually about how long it will take you. It actually depends on how clean your set of books that you have from some other program like QuickBooks are, and whether you need to get those cleaned up so that you can put your chart of accounts in CHS and enter some good balance forwards to get started. Like if you have a reconciled bank account, you need that balance forward. If you have jobs in progress, you need the balance forward for each of those jobs, etc. So if you have good clean numbers and are ready to get going, then that's great. However, you might need to have your outside accountant help you get a good clean set of books before you get started, because you want to start off right and you don't want to be doing rework later. So there are setup steps here. What I'm going to do is go back to the home menu since we're talking about accounting. I'm going to collapse all these menus that I had open, and I'm going to go to the chart of accounts window, which is of course what you need to be able to do all of your accounting. A chart of accounts is different than the cost codes that the builder is using, and these are what controls what accounts show up on those financial statements, like balance sheets, income statements, and that sort of thing. So you can load a NHB recommended chart of accounts or a simpler one that I made and then start tweaking it as you need. I did load the simpler one that I made because I think NHB is too complex, but you can print them out and load them using this button up here. But I added some things. You can edit the financial group headings, which is these: receivables, inventories, work in progress. I added a few things in here down near sales, etc. I made a group for sales remodeling and a group for rental income, and I did the same with cost of sales. I added a group in and added some accounts to the chart of accounts because I was playing like this builder had a couple of rental properties and that they do some remodeling work, which would be different than their cost of sales family home. So it's real flexible for your accountant to help you set up and get your chart of accounts right. Now, the kicker here, when you're connected to an accounting program, is you need to decide on a balance forward date, which is usually midnight. Say it's the end of the year, it'd be 12/31/2020. I'm in 2021 right now talking about this. That's midnight, 12/31/2021, because CHS, to have a good set of accounting books for you, needs to know what that date is, because if you have some jobs in progress and you're entering the balance forwards for those jobs, maybe in your work in progress account on your chart of accounts, you enter the totals of how much cost you've had so far on those. And then maybe you want to do the detail of the job costs behind them by cost code so that you can get those into your actual job cost subsidiary reports. So CHS needs to know and be able to detect whether a cost is before or after your balance forward date, and it will be handled differently. There's a screen to enter prior period costs pretty quickly so that you can get the detail and your prior period or open unpaid accounts payable. Hopefully that wasn't too much of a mouthful for you, but it's just a fact of that you're going to be running a full and complete accounting program. What I'd like to show you is what I mentioned about how there's extensive help on screens for you and videos. That's what these little things are, and you'll notice that I clicked help and chart of accounts was highlighted because I was on that screen. The other complex thing in home building is that various builders use different methods of accounting depending on what their tax accountant or somebody prefers. And I have a document that actually talks about the basic 3 methods of accounting. Just talk about them, but hopefully your outside accountant knows what you're on. Now, the cash method of accounting for home builders isn't very recommended because let's say you take in a $20,000 down payment and you put it straight to sales, which is what you do in the cash method, and suddenly that month shows you have a $20,000 profit, which if you think about it as a home builder, that's not right because some other things are going to start happening. Most builders are on a completed contract method, which means they're entering all kinds of costs into work in progress, and then monies received are being entered into what's called some construction liability accounts. The term liability indicates that your company owes this money to someone like the customer if the job is not completed, or to the lender until the job is completed, like interim draws are coming in, monies received. And if you put those in straight to sales on your income statement will be kind of screwy because you might get a draw way up front, show some big profit, that kind of thing. So you're usually putting them on balance sheets accounts like work in progress or construction liability accounts. The most recommended method is called percentage of completion. In other words, you're figuring out how much costs you incurred each month based on what you've been entering into accounts payable, etc. And then taking a look at what percent of your estimated cost that is and figuring out how much revenue you've earned. And you're making a journal entry at the end of every month to recognize the revenue and the costs for that month so you can do more of a spread of what you've been earning each month and what you really are making. I'm going to show you that CHS has a powerful percentage of completion screen that figures out all that data for you and makes it easy to do your journal entries at the end of the month if you decide that you're going to go this way. So I'd like the accountants to pay attention to that might have some idea. I used to actually have to spend a whole bunch, like a week at the end of each month, doing big spreadsheets trying to figure out what my current estimated costs were, what my current revised price, because if you've watched previous video, you can see how that's always changing in home building. And so you have all kinds of spreadsheets before you even get to the point of figuring out how much you've earned on each job. So CHS just, boom, does that for you. I just wanted you to see how CHS has the help, but I also wanted you to know that CHS does not control what type of accounting that you use. It doesn't say what type do you use. It's just that you need to understand the methods so that you're posting things to your chart of accounts when you enter job costs or deposits to the correct place for whatever your method of accounting is. I'm happy to discuss this with anybody that would like to call about it. But there's very detailed help about doing the chart of accounts here. What I'd like to do is talk about that work in progress account that this builder is on, uses some percentage of completion. But work in progress, direct construction costs it's called on the NAHB, to post all your job costs is right here. This is showing that you can drill down to all of the records for this particular account, but I'm going to jump to another place where you can do that and show you some powerful tools in CHS. And this does mean that so much is being taken out and sent to cost of sales, and I have recommendations when doing percentage of completion that you keep all your job costs in direct construction costs and have a contra account just so you can see those separately to do some reconciliation. So I wanted to point out that CHS is very powerful, and the screen for doing the chart of accounts is set up to have all of the things that I always wish that I could have. I'll jump real quickly to the general ledgers. I'd like every accountant to know that this is a basic accounting system, and I don't want you to say, you know, you only know QuickBooks and you don't know CHS. Well, all this is asking you, it's even letting me just fill in the dates for a ledger that's from my minimum date in CHS to my max date. I'd like to show you that if I'm just interested in one account and I want to see everything in it, and I click to open the accounting database. If you remember looking at the chart of accounts, this is the balance that it showed on there. Now I could have made it so that the balance would be as of end of a year, the from and to balances here. But what I wanted to point out to you is that in this, in all of our records entered from accounts payable or from journal entry, there's a job code that will be entered when you enter your payables. Then there's a cost code. The cost code might drop in based on the vendor that's selected because you set up your vendors properly and give them the proper default cost code that goes with their type of work. And then there's paid dates, etc. But there's a job code, a vendor code. If it's a deposit, there'll probably be a payer in here. We call everybody we get money from payers. So because CHS is structured this way, that's how we're going to get all of the other information that I'm going to show you that makes CHS such a powerful job costing program. So I'd like to also show you that I could search just for the Smith-John job. That's quite often what I use for a demo job. And then all of a sudden, I just have the Smith-John entries for that job. And I can do a report of those entries for Smith-John. And there's several ways. There's a regular general ledger report with attachments is a really interesting one. On this accounts payable lines, you're seeing some hyperlinks here. And if you send it to PDF, those become active, and generally when it's accounts payable, it's a copy of the actual real bill that was used when this particular accounts payable was entered. So while you're entering bills, you can upload various copies of invoices. So there's general ledgers grouped by GL, then quarter by GL, and by GL I mean that account on your chart of accounts, or your regular general ledger of transactions. This one by GL, then month. If you're doing a telephone expense, it's pretty interesting so that you can kind of figure out stuff for the financial budgets that are available in CHS. You can set up not only budgets and estimates for your jobs, but you can set up financial budgets that you can use to do comparison income statements to the budget. I probably won't go into that here, but I just wanted you to know that it's here. If you're interested in just what's been posted as job costs, that means everything that's been posted with a cost code other than 0. So you could search here and do greater than 0 for your cost code, submit the search, and find everything that is a job cost for Smith John, which is $166,635.59. Now I'd like to show you something else on the home menu. We're going to go to the active jobs dashboard, which is where the field and a lot of people are working just to work on one job, all kinds of things for one job. Now look, if I look at the actual job cost database, you're going to see all of these records that were pulled from accounting to show all of the actual jobs that are grouped and totaled by the cost code, not by the general ledger number. And if I do a report of that, let's go down here, 166,635. CHS was able to pull the subsidiary job cost report just because of how the database is structured. So I wanted to show you that's where all those actual job cost reports come from that you will be using throughout CHS. So let's do the thing that wows you about what CHS is gathering so quickly for you, and I thought I would just jump over to the people doing percentage of completion to show you what CHS does. I've already typed in here, I had it open in the tab already, a beginning and ending date for a month. But before we open the percentage of completion worksheet, there are other tools here, like this general ledger summary by job and month for year, and I selected the year 2016 because that's what we're working in, that can help you decide if you've already done the journal entry for a particular job or for several jobs, etc. So we're going to get all the way down here to direct construction costs. And it splits it by job, as you can see, and then shows you what's been in for each month now. But you can see here's our costs, January, February, March, our job costs. But you can see down here, cost of sales recognized only has some entries for this VistaView 3811, because that's the only job we've decided to do percentage of completion for all our demos. So we can see right here that 2 entries, January and February, have happened. And things get posted to this cost of sales recognized when you create your percentage of completion entry, and shows how much has been taken out to send to cost of sales. We keep these 2 accounts separate so that we can always have the direct construction costs tying to our job cost report, and then right underneath it on the chart of accounts we can see how much we've already sent out to be on the income statement as cost of sales. So we're ready to do March. You can see these 2 numbers here and these 2 numbers here. We already sent the cost of sales out. So let's do March. The other real quick thing I'll show you is a summary of open jobs, revenues, and cost reports. You can see there's revenues, there's costs, and percent of revenue. You can see the VistaView down here, its revenues, its costs. There's that Smith John, and there's the amount of the costs we were looking at for just a minute ago. It's just an interesting report to see the revenues and costs, because that's what we're tending to when we do percentage of completion. Let's look at it on the percentage of completion worksheet. This is what opened for me, already gathered for me, without me doing a week of work or more, trying to figure out what the current revised price on the contract is, which you saw in the first video how I was doing that, what the current estimated costs of completion are on some other big spreadsheets. All of that stuff is already here. The revised price is here for VistaView. If I drill down on it, you saw this screen on a previous video, and this one is marked as a cost plus fee, so its revised price is based on the current estimated cost of completion plus that fee plus any fees for change orders. That's changing as you go through the job, but it's brought that amount in to use to come up with the current estimated profit, the profit percent. It shows prior period costs before the beginning of this month, current period costs, and job to date costs incurred. And it figures out based on those, divided by what your estimated cost of completion, what percent complete you're done as of March 31st in our case, and applies that to the revised price to come up with current period revenue earned. It is these 2 valuable numbers, current period revenue earned and current period costs incurred, that you would be wanting to make a journal entry for, to send those to sales and cost of sales. So there's a quick button, create journal entry. It's asking what accounts, but it'll remember the last ones you used. So it's saying I want to send the earned income to sales, and I'll offset it to a contra account right underneath those liability accounts, showing how much we've sent to sales, which is $20.99 on our chart of accounts, and that we want to send the costs incurred to cost of sales, single family homes in this case, And there's that contra account I showed you that it will post the offset to. I'd like for you to keep all your costs in your direct construction costs so you can tie those to job cost reports. And if you continue to create the journal entry, CHS will post the journal entry for you, and you're done with doing that journal entry. That's how fast it is. I'd like to let you know that if there's something you don't like about the journal entry, and that it will display the journal entry for you once you post it so you can see what happened. But you can go to the screen for your adjusting journal entries and delete it and do it again. I wanted to show you that pretty quickly without too much detail, but again, there's help for percentage of completion, and you can see all of the help about that. And watch the videos. The other powerful report that I'd like to wow you with, the other powerful area, is under Home. See this work in progress trial balance by job? Let's say, I just want to do it as of today, but you might do it as a year-end date when you're evaluating how much is in each account for a job. The most important account that I suggest every month people look at is the 1430 work in progress, or wherever your work in progress job costs are. But since it's on the balance sheet, you want to be checking for things that really shouldn't be here anymore, maybe for closed jobs. And I on purpose made an entry that I ignored all the warnings from CHS when I posted some accounts payable entry that said this job is closed. You might want to post it straight to cost of sales, and I still posted it to 1430 because I was so used to that. And it's showing you that this job was closed in 2014 back then. So you'd want to drill down on those entries, find them, look them up on your vendor payables list. It's probably an accounts payable entry if I open it. And if I drill down on it, I can take a look all the way down here, and I can see that I did an entry in 2020 all of a sudden for $575. It was to AP. It was to this vendor JTS wallpaper. And I can go to where the vendor ledger database is, find that entry, open it, and probably change the GL number to the 3600 account cost of sales that 36 something that I should have posted it to instead of 1430. So it gives you the clues. You can drill down on that to see why that's here. It'll show all sorts of detail of other things. But if you're an outside accountant or CPA doing the tax returns for a home builder and you're getting them from QuickBooks, you're quite often all of a sudden asking everybody to spend a whole bunch of time figuring out how much is in work in progress for each job. And look how quickly CHS did that. So I'd like to tell you what it means to have an accounting program connected with your job costing program. And of course, in a job costing thing, we need a place where we are setting up jobs and keeping track of various jobs. And I'd like to go ahead and click one of these jobs that we've set up to edit. And I'm going to talk about how accounting suddenly shows up. You might expect that you'd set up a job and give it an address. But here's the thing. So you might have a custom home and you're putting everything into direct construction costs. By everything, I don't mean everything. I mean your job costs, and you're putting them into this one GL. Like I said, you only need one GL account to put those job costs, whatever you use for your GL. If you're on cash basis, maybe it is a cost of sales account, but this is our direct construction costs. It asks for that on this screen, so the accountant should be involved in deciding what kind of job this is and what department. You can set up various departments, as many departments as you like. Notice we have a remodeling, a custom homes, a spec department, property management for a couple of rental homes we have, etc. This part right here means that you can do little financial statements for just a department, so that when you're entering bills to pay or other things and you select this job, the accounting record will look to the job, drop in what department it should be posted to and what job cost GL it should be posted to in accounting, so that you don't have to re-enter those or select those. So you can always change it when it drops into the bill. These are called defaults for this job. Now you, as the accountant, if you're helping a bookkeeper do things, need to give advice to where they should post their job costs for custom homes. But let's take a look at another one. These are our two rental properties, and let's take a look at this one. Notice that it is Department PM and Job Cost GL for posting job costs, because if you have rental properties, maybe you're doing various costs, maintenance costs, this and that. So you can set up a job for rental properties so that you can track and keep track of their cost on their own. And by the way, you can do little income statements or trial balances for each and every job. But they're using rental maintenance 3676 under cost of sales rental expense. Remember how I said I had a financial financial section for that. They selected their department PM for property management. Down here on our remodel, department is REM for remodel, and their GL that they're posting their cost, their job cost for that one too, is cost of sales remodeling, because they are doing the remodeling ones on a cash basis. So that's a tool that CHS has that then helps the bookkeeper when they're entering bills. And if you're setting up vendors, which is trades and suppliers or anybody that you pay money to, here's a subcontractor. When you set up that vendor, you also want to tie it. It's not just a list of the vendor's name and address. You have various things when you're in home building and job costing that you're going to need to do about this vendor. For one thing, if they're supposed to get a 1099, you select NEC 1099 and be sure you have a tax ID. But here's a place to put in their default GL account number, and since this is a subcontractor that works on our custom home, we've given them a default of 1430 and a department of CHS and a cost code, which is the set of cost codes that is framing labor that would drop in when this vendor bill, you select that vendor, it's going to drop this in as a cost code, and you can select another cost code nearby if they do some work for something else. Then of course some vendors or suppliers might give you discounts, or maybe you're withholding retainage. This one we marked. Hardly any builders are doing that anymore. But this will tell accounting when you're selecting a bill to pay, we need to deduct 10% from this. Then another big thing in home building is that for your various subcontractors especially, you're probably needing to track general liability insurance and whether they have it or not. So you would check it as required. You get a certificate from them, which you can use some features up here to send and ask them for their certificate or their 1099 or their W-9, etc. I won't go into all that. And you tell it when it expires. And also, for doing a general liability audit report, you can ask your insurance auditor what rate they might be charging you if they don't have insurance or if their insurance expired sometime during the year, because you're going to be able to get great general liability audit reports for the policy period in CHS that those insurance auditors say, oh, you have CHS, give me that report and I'm out of here. Workers' comp is a similar thing where it will warn you when you're entering bills. That's a place where you can help the bookkeeper, if you are the outside accountant, give them knowledge. I'd like to look also, if you're doing things that aren't job costs, you have a vendor like say AT&T for your phone, there's defaults that you can put in to drop in, and this one is $8,600 under their office expenses, telephone expense, overhead department, and a zero cost code because they won't be doing job costs. A zero cost code means it's not a job cost. And they put in a default description for their payables bills, so when they start entering a bill for AT&T, the description part of that record will already drop in for them. Let's go home for a second. So now that we've talked about setting up jobs to have default general ledger account numbers that drop in, and vendors that have default general ledger account numbers and departments, etc., and cost codes for the vendors, let's take a look at the screen that probably the bookkeeper is on most all of the time because they're entering in home building so many job cost payables bills. Either a manual check has been written for it, so they're entering one as paid, or they're entering bills here that they post as unpaid to paid later in a big check run. And yes, CHS prints checks, etc. Let's take a look at doing some of those payables bills. I just selected AT&T first since I just talked about it. And because AT&T won't be a job cost, it's just a telephone expense, I'm selecting the button for Create Quick Bill. And I'd like you to see everything that has dropped in. The GL number 8600 that we said for telephone expense has dropped in, a description has dropped in, and a department has dropped in. And all I really need to do is put in an invoice number, and since AT&T doesn't have invoice numbers, I'll just use 6 digits for the date, which is what I recommend. And then I'll enter whatever the amount of the bill is, and then I'll submit it as unpaid to pay later. So that's how quick it is to enter that bill. Notice over here, before I forget, is that you can copy lines, make more lines. Sometimes we use the quantity, maybe I split the bill between some department and another department, or some GL account and another, half of it to some other GL expense, and I could change that, or another department, etc. And I can use the quantity 0.5, 0.5 to do half and half. So then I would submit that, and it would be posted as unpaid if I selected to do that, or I could mark it as paid by a credit card if I had paid it by a credit card, and I'd select which credit card. That's a whole nother lesson about credit cards, but CHS is really good about letting you post something to who you paid and then marking it as paid by credit card. Then for accounting behind the scenes, if you mark it as paid by credit card and you set up credit card accounts on your chart of accounts, it will track ledgers of your credit cards. And when you're ready to pay the credit cards, you come in and select the credit card and just pay one big lump sum. If this had been job costing bills, the same thing. You can post as paid by credit card, like to Joe the plumber, and then you can still get ledgers of what you paid Joe the plumber and 1099s, etc., and mark it as paid by credit card if you paid them by credit card. I'm going to close this. Now we'll talk about posting to that Acosta that we showed you a minute ago. So let's open to create a job-related bill. First of all, if you remember when I was showing you Acosta, their general liability insurance is expired, so I'm going to say yes, deduct from them. I also could send a request to them for their general liability insurance certificate. What happened over here when I said yes, deduct, remember how I said something about get the rate from your insurance agent for that trade? If I select a GL number to post a credit to, from my office expenses, general liability insurance deducted from trades, it will remember that next time, that's where I'm posting some amounts that I'm going to take away. Notice that if I put an amount in here of $1,000, $25.40 is calculated to deduct from their check, and CHS will take care of the accounting of posting this part over to the right GL. But also notice that $14.30 dropped in because we don't know about the job yet, so it looked to the vendor and dropped in the default GL number for the vendor and the default cost code and a cost type that goes with that. But let's see what happens if I select one of my property management jobs here. I selected one of my property management jobs, and notice that because of how we set up the job, the GL number automatically changed when I selected that job to be rental maintenance instead of the $14.30. And we had some other remodel job, but I think you would get the concept there. But let's go back. Let's select Smith John, our job. And Smith John is set up to use $14.30 and the Department of Custom Homes. When we did the PM job, the department that it's going to be in is PM. I'm going to select a PO to show you something. I selected a PO up here, and everything pretty well got filled in for me, including the amount of the bill, and put in the job that I selected here, looked to the job, gave it the right GL number, etc. And it's that fast. All I would have to do is put in the invoice number and post it. So you have that option of posting from a PO. But let's set that to none. And I'd like to do an example with a different job. Smith John. Let's just give it some invoice number that we got from them, and it's framing labor, dropped in as a description, still for Acosta, and I like that. And if this was a cost plus markup job, CHS has looked to the job budget to see what markup percent is there for the cost code 3150, and that's how, attached to each record when you're posting payables, we can produce cost plus markup draw requests at a marked up amount. So this would get marked up when we pull it for a cost plus markup. But what I'm going to do is just make this amount $25,000, and I'd like to submit this bill. It's telling me I have alerts and would I like to review them. Notice that it says I'm over budget. This is where you can become a hero. It says I'm over budget by $24,116. So this is the interaction between accounting and job costing and the job budget. We had original budget of $42,000, change order budget of $3,375, total budget, POs, costs. We did the costs. We already posted costs is what this is showing us, and that we're under budget. But if we posted the thing we're posting right now, we'd be over by this amount. So if we entered something, got that kind of alert, we can do a comment to the field that will be approving bills to pay and say, this is over budget, please drill down on things. I could have drilled down ahead of time to POs, to the estimated cost at completion. And this is showing me over POs, and I can compare by 25,000. As you saw, we had already posted costs that equaled the POs, so it would be the amount of this, and you can drill down farther on all of that. The other thing is, let's go ahead and just make this $500. Play like we're paying them for something that we would like to back charge somebody else for. So let's say yes, back charge, because let's say some other trade did some damage and we're having to pay a costa, and we could type a description in here for whatever so that that's clear. And I select maybe Big Buck, the person that does the foundation, I don't know who, and I decide to back charge them part of it. What CHS will do accounting wise when this is submitted is go post a minus amount, a minus payables amount to Big Buck, so that if you have other bills from Big Buck and you have them in unpaid and you're getting ready to pay a check, you can select the minus amount to take away from that check when you do it. So that's a feature for home builders. Let's go ahead and say no, don't back charge here. And if you decide you're not going to deduct the general liability insurance, you can change this back to no. Get rid of those fields so CHS won't be doing that. The other thing is that if for some reason you are putting sales tax on here of 8 1/4, you can see down here how sales tax was calculated. CHS will post this as one line, one record for $500, another record for $41.25 that has a cost type of sales tax on it. So when that home buyer asks for a big list of what sales tax has been paid, you can go and just search that general ledger I showed you for everything that has a cost type of sales tax on it. So there's all kinds of things that are happening here on the accounts payable screen that are very unique to home builders. Another thing is that if I went ahead and submitted this, it's still showing over budget because I left the same cost codes. Just continue to submit. You have options to post as unpaid to pay later, to post a manual check or something, or print the check right now, to post as paid by credit card like I mentioned. The other thing is post as paid voucher, and that would be if you were posting something that maybe your home buyer already paid for, because that happens in home building. CHS will take care of the accounting and post two things. One, as a paid voucher revenue that shows up as revenues received from the customer, and the other side as a job cost, and that will not show up on unpaid payables, but it will show up in vendor ledgers so that you can track the costs even if you didn't actually pay for them. So let's close and not post any of that yet. I just hope you get a real quick idea of how you need to help the bookkeeper set up the various defaults that will drop in when entering a bill, and how those defaults can speed up your data entry for posting the bills. So you can just enter things one time. This may look different than QuickBooks and posting a bill, but all of these fields in here, including whether this should be included on a 1099 and cost plus and what cost code, etc., causes it so that you are not entering all kinds of Excel spreadsheets and putting this stuff in again, because CHS is asking for it right now so that it can put it on the various reports right away for you. The other thing I'd like to show you is when you're receiving money and posting it, there's something that can be set up called deposit categories, and you as the accountant should help the bookkeeper. But there's some common terms we use, like down payment. We know we got a down payment, or we got an interim draw. You can go ahead and edit these or add new ones and connect a general ledger accounting number that will drop in when they're entering the deposit. They'll select interim draw, and the GL number 2000 would drop in for construction loans payable, so they don't have to think as much. If you're the accountant, help them get these set up, because those are supposed to be the let's do it in English and not in the accounting kind of thing. Also notice what big time help I have for posting a zero deposit for if you get a lot draw and don't get money, but you want that to be your first lot draw and have it in your construction payable, etc. Full videos about how to do that. The other video is about posting a job closing deposit It's a help document, and there's also a video there, but I'm going to open the help document real quickly. And you can see what happens at job closing for custom homes is you get some HUD papers. And I made an example of a HUD paper, a little closing HUD paper. I tell you what things to check. But you can look up at your trial balance for the job, because you can get a little trial balance, see what you have in construction loans payable, figure out that the difference from it and the HUD paper where they're paying it off might be your interest. And I talk all about that and how to post that great big entry for a closing deposit before you actually close your jobs. This is the screen where you're posting it, sales price, and then minus the down payment, minus change order money, minus paying off the interim draw. And when they did interim draw, $2,000 dropped in. When they select a deposit category of job cost, then you could put a cost code, because now we have closing costs coming off this deposit until you come down to the amount of the deposit you receive from the title company. Just want you to know that's there and how that happens, so that you do all of that part and you enter just general deposits like add a new deposit. I want you to notice that when I select the payer Smith John, it goes out and sees if this payer Smith John is attached to a job and supplies the job. And if I'm posting interim draw, I'll put a brief description here probably, but the GL number dropped in. If I'm posting for a change order, you can see that it has a default GL account of 2020. And then I probably want to have selected a change order that they're paying for, which if I did, that drops in. That's already been paid for, so it didn't drop in an amount, but you can see payments here. The only one I have is $125. So that did drop in a number. And if there was AR invoices for this payer, then we'd have accounts receivable invoices that we would be entering and marking as paid. And CHS will then supply accounts receivable or stuff as your deposit category. But I just wanted you to see that that's all going on and it's connected to jobs. And one more thing, let's now look at CHS being so powerful with knowing about the jobs. And let's say we want to close a job. We were looking at Vista View on our percentage of completion. And I'm just going to use today's date, which isn't going to make any sense because that was 2016, but this is just to make a point. And then select a job, and then look at how CHS is right away presenting you with a little trial balance, and this has been doing percentage of completion, so it shows how much is in all the GL accounts for that job, which you can imagine that it can do because you saw that big trial balance by job. And you're going to be closing some things like direct construction costs, cost of sales recognized, change order deposits, etc. when you do it. So if you continue to the job closing window, so it presents the accounts that are on your balance sheet and gives you a way to create a journal entry. So direct construction costs, we would probably be selecting the $3,600 for cost of sales single family homes for that job, and it will create your journal entry. The cost of sales recognized that you did through percentage of completion would also go to that 36, which causes a great big wash. And if you want to talk to me about that, if you're an accountant, you'll understand that, but you'll also send this to cost of sales. So the net of those is the difference that you haven't put over there through percentage of completion. Most all of these are monies received, and you're putting all of those to sales. And after you've done your closing deposit, you'll probably only have one that equals the sales price. That's it. That's how easy it is, and how CHS is so smart about gathering those numbers for you. Let's go look at one more thing that I want to show you that saves a lot of time. I put in a policy period, and hopefully I get to have some numbers from during that time since all my stuff is old. But I'd like you to see how every subcontractor that has been marked that general liability is required, all the records that were paid to them during that policy period are shown here. And this one particular payment was on 3/27/2017, and the period I did was ending 6/30, so it's saying yes, it was expired before the paid date. And you can do a lot of drilling down and editing of those as you review them before you do the general liability audit report. But this is the report that auditor likes. Currently uninsured was that JT's wallpaper. And there's that insurance rate I was talking about that you could attach to that vendor. So if they're underinsured or not insured, it can calculate for your information how much you might be charged for that uninsured subcontractor. I won't go into any more detail. I just want you to know it's there. There's lots of tools going on there that are peculiar to home building. I really haven't touched on all of them in this video, but I don't want you to have to watch it forever. I'm just hoping to prove a point that it has everything in it that I wished I had while I was working as a controller for a custom home builder, so that I didn't have to do all these spreadsheets to take care of things like general liability audits and so on. It's just right there for you. So hopefully that gives you a good idea of the power of the accounting and the accounting stuff that is in CHS, and that CHS is first and foremost a complete accounting program. Thank you so much for watching.